So welcome everyone. My name is Lauren Liz Hubbard. I'm a commercial photographer based in the Metro Atlanta area, and I'm an excited new board member with the Atlanta chapter of APA. And today we are here with photographer and director and APA Atlanta member, Gregory Miller. We're so excited to have him. And we'd love to know how you heard about today's event. If you can hop over into either the chat or the Q&A area and share where you're tuning in from and how you heard about this event. That helps us to understand what's working well for getting the word out, so we can keep doing more of that. I'm going to share just a little intro information about APA, and then I'm going to hand it over to Greg and get started. So if you're not familiar with APA, American Photographic Artists exists to provide business tools that help photographers of all levels run a smarter, more creative, and profitable business. We organize educational, social, and networking events both in person and online. We organize photo contests, negotiate awesome benefits for our members. We advocate for freelance photographer rights. And the Atlanta chapter actually covers most of the Southeast. So if you're in the Southeast, know that we are your APA hub. But I invite you to visit apanational.org to learn more about our organization and membership. And we hope today is a nice break in your week to provide inspiration and insight as Greg shares a look into his world and his work and his experience. So Gregory, I'm going to throw it over to you. Do you prefer Greg, Gregory? I've seen both.
Yeah, Greg is what most people call me.
All right, awesome.
There's another, back when I was, just 20 years ago, back when I was starting my website, I realized that there are a lot of people who share my name, who make pictures. And so I had to go with the full name.
I like it.
Greg
I like
Miller
it.
was already taken.
Greg
Miller photo was taken. Like
I understand.
It's funny. There's a guy who shoots a lot of large format photography and up in New England. Super great work. And yeah, early on, like I got his film sent to me from like Time Inc. And I was like, no, like you sent it to the wrong guy.
That's so funny. I actually get a lot of wrong emails for like I guess there's another Lauren Hubbard, or it's a Liz Lauren actually. Yeah. And I'm Lauren Liz. And so I'll get emails about permission to use work. And I'm like, I'm Lauren Liz. I'm not Liz Lauren.
Funny.
Then, so
yeah, there's another one in Montana that does like senior portraits and stuff. And I'll get people asking for their prints. I'm like, I'm not in Montana.
I love it. Oh, someone just let me know. So yes, we do have the chat. The chat function is turned off for this because it's the webinar, but the Q&A should be working. So that's where you can submit your questions and I will pass them through to Greg as we go along, just so everybody knows. So off to you, Greg. I'm going to mute myself.
Great. Okay. So yeah, just a little bit about me. This is just taken from my About Me page on my website. You know, I've been doing this for 20 years. So when I started shooting, I was shooting film, and I still incorporate some of that I have over the years. And actually, I've rekindled this spark, and I'm investing in a large format kit to shoot film again, which I'm feeling new energy about. But yeah, mostly traveling and shooting people on location for editorial, for various corporate and advertising projects. I like to be outdoors. I love paddling and camping and mountain biking and all that kind of stuff. So this just kind of reflects on what I like to do. So the way I structured this is really kind of starting all the way back in the beginning. So this, I went to school at Portfolio Center here in Atlanta, which is now Miami Ad School. And while I was there, I was there between 2001 and 2003, and the school had a really good relationship with this design firm out of Chicago. They had a project. This was 2003. So if you can think about the economy at that time, it was kind of, just following 2002 was a terrible year, following 9/11. And the whole .com crash. So this was an annual report for a company called Manpower, which is a staffing company. They have offices in, I don't know, more than 50 countries. and they wanted someone to shoot street photography across the globe in 10 cities. It was like a 30-day round the world ticket. And it was sort of advertised to a few students that this was going to be an internship. So basically it was, whoever did it was going to shoot for free. But, as a student, it was just a tremendous opportunity. And so I submitted work, and then I submitted work again, and then I submitted work again. I was just so eager for this opportunity. And I ended up getting the opportunity to shoot this. So this is some of the work I shot. Again, it was just street photography, and in 10 cities across the world, just trying to capture the kind of mood of the global economy. So yeah, it for me, it as a student who wasn't working professionally yet, I feel like it gave me a lot of confidence, and I think it gave me some credibility when I went out and started showing my book right after that. So while I was a student, I was doing, there we go. I was doing freelance. I was a freelance photographer at Turner Broadcasting, and they owned the Hawks and the Thrashers while I was there. And then once I graduated, they had sold both teams. And through my relationship with the photographers there, I ended up being the recommend to shoot the Hawks and the Thrashers, and ended up doing that for 12, 13, 14 years, up until COVID, when they restructured things. And they actually reached back out to me this year to shoot the Hawks again, but I'm going to be traveling. But it was, the opportunity to shoot both of these teams, the creative direction, often it was so collaborative between myself and who was the creative director at the time. And so we would have several sets that we would push the players through, and different wardrobe changes. And they had a vast library of images that I really don't think they leveraged. I really think it was super exciting for the creative team, but they didn't really have as many outlets for the photography as maybe they wanted. But for me, it was a fantastic couple of days of shooting. So that led, because of my connection with the Thrashers, which, if you don't know, they were our NHL team that we had for a brief tenure. But Atlanta Magazine wanted to do a profile on the team, and I proposed that we do this black and white, and we take off the jerseys, and it was really just the players with their pads. And so, following a practice, we set up just outside the practice rink, and just pulled them over one at a time and shot them on this white seamless set. And I've always been really happy with this work. I love the way that I wanted to light it, which was with a Fresnel and some rim lights, and just really moody and deep blacks. Sort of a classic black and white portrait approach to this kind of stuff, but keeping it really raw with the broken nose and the sweat on the shirt. The pads were sometimes like twisted and dirty and scuffed and torn, and it was a project that I've really held on to. I've got a lot of personal projects in this presentation for you guys, and a lot of them just came through conversations. Me and a friend of mine who's a creative director, we were out having Mexican food, and there was this mariachi band playing, and we got to talking, like, man, I wonder what their story is. And I told him, I was like, I don't know, I'll go find out. I'll see if I can do some photography with them. So I reached out to this guy Luis in the center here, who's going on a cigarette, and I ended up spending some time at the rehearsals and doing a little interview with them, shooting some video content, and doing portraits. The Bitter Southerner, which some of you will probably be familiar with, they're having their 10th anniversary this year. They were brand new at the time, and so they picked up the story and ran with it. And it was one of their early stories that they produced. I'll just cycle through some of these here that I've pulled. This was, I still had some Polaroid PN type 55 and put that through my speed graphic, put them next to a window, pretty simple stuff. But yeah, I just love the effect and the results that came from it. Another project that I did, I had an intern, a guy who, if you guys aren't familiar with him, you should check out his work. His name's Artem Nazarov. He's a Russian guy who lives in Atlanta, and he was also a student at Portfolio Center and interned with me. So I had him shooting he was second shooter on a project that I was doing for a healthcare company. And we were coming back from Houston, I think it was, and we were getting on the plane, and just out of the blue, he's like, I think I'm going to go to Chernobyl. I was like, oh my gosh, Artem, like I've wanted to go to Chernobyl since, I don't know, I'm so fascinated with it. I would love to do that. So this was kind of in the infancy of crowdfunding. So we set up we sort of divided and conquered. I set up funding the project through a Kickstarter campaign. I think we raised like $12,000, I think, which was enough for us to get over there a couple of times and shoot. And he managed, all the translation and all the kind of boots on the ground stuff. But our focus, we really wanted to connect with the liquidators, which, familiar with the book, I think it's Midnight in Chernobyl, or anyway, it was kind of adapted to that show on HBO, which was fantastic. But the liquidators are the ones who went in and they cleaned it up. And so we wanted to focus on them. So the portraits you see here, these are the guys, man. We were in Ukraine and in couple of different spots in Russia as well, seeking these guys out. And the ones in Ukraine were protesting because they were in Kyiv and their benefits from the state were being cut. And so they were doing this protest where they were all fasting. And so they were standing out in this park outside the Parliament building. And I think it says fasting on this headpiece, this headband that they're wearing. I put them up against this blue wall and pulled out my Hasselblad and made some portraits. It was, Artem would kind of translate for me kind of what they were saying, but man, they were so kind. Like, it was freezing out in Kyiv when we were there. And this American guy from the South, like, I wasn't prepared at all for that kind of cold. They gave me one of their parkas to wear, and just what a great experience meeting these people. They invited us into their home, and we had little biscuits and coffee and this homemade, essentially like a moonshine called Gorilka, which is it's pretty severe stuff. It's incredibly boozy, and the ingredients are quite questionable. But that's kind of, no matter the time of day, we would have some Gorilka. This guy, this was in his home. He was a truck driver. Another project I worked on was I was interested in beekeeping, which kind of led me to another project that I'll talk about momentarily. But I found this Georgia Beekeeping Society and ended up going up there. And as I was, this is the one that I still hold on to from this personal project. As I was shooting, her and her husband, who had several hives, and again, they're like president of the Beekeeping Association of Georgia. She mentioned that she was the Tennessee honey queen. And I was like, oh my gosh, do you still have your sash and your crown? She's like, oh yeah. I was like, well, we have to shoot a picture of you, like, in your living room with, you can't see, but these pillows back, everything was bee themed in their house. And you can see like her shirt that she has little bees on it, and her little dress has a hive on it. And so anyway, she put it on. We made this picture, which I've always loved, which led to an assignment from Atlanta Magazine to shoot a story on this is kind of when colony collapse disorder was being studied extensively, and it was being understood that bee colonies were impacted by all kinds of things that people didn't plan for, like, pesticides, I think primarily. But a couple of beekeepers that I photographed. This is a father and son that I photographed for this story. They will go and remove hives from people's homes, and I just went to their home and photographed them at their home. I think, yeah, sort of a Martin Scholler kind of look on the right there, which kind of led me to this project that I
Quick question for
started.
you, Gregory, about your personal work.
Yeah, sure.
So you've mentioned that you're talking about a lot of personal work. Is there a specific frequency of, like, do you have a goal for yourself of shooting a certain number of personal projects, within a year, or do you just sort of wait for inspiration to strike?
I really don't. I think that kind of opportunistic when there's an opportunity, like when I was talking with Artem and he mentioned going to Chernobyl. It's just an opportunity I couldn't pass up. Other things seem to be, like the like the mariachi or like the beekeepers, just something, just a curiosity, just an interest. And I find that the camera is such a great tool to understand, whatever it is I'm interested in, because people open up. Um, that's one of the things that I really love about, photography and photographing, real people's stories, is hearing and understanding, what people's lives are like. And so, uh, like in 2020, this kind of leads into this question, but also into this next series of photographs. But it's 2020, I spent a lot of time here at home, and I was doing a lot of gardening and not just gardening like vegetable gardening, but I got into like the Japanese style of Milwaukee, which is like pines and maples, and in your yard that you would train to with through pruning or tying down and bracing, and which also translates into bonsai, which means in a pot. So I shot a project in 2020, one of the few projects I worked on, but it was down at Pearson Farms, where they have pecans and peaches, and being outside and photographing in the orchards, like the people working. I did some reflecting, and I was like, man, I love photographing hardworking people. My parents grew up on farms. Like, I love being outdoors. I was like, I think I want to shoot. I want to build an agriculture portfolio. And so I reached out to. I was talking to my brother about it. He's a PR writer, and he happened to know this woman who's married to a guy in South Georgia who is a farm consultant. And so I reached out to him. The dude's name is Buster. And I reached out to Buster, and Buster was like, "Oh yeah, come on down, man. I'll take you around the county, and we'll go to all these farms." And so I did. I went down there and spent a lot of time with him. And this guy right here, he's a farmhand. He's on this ATV that they drive him around, and he's got his dogs with him and his rifle back there. But I just kind of went all in 2021 building this portfolio. So I spent a lot of time in South Georgia. South Georgia has corn, cotton, and peanuts. I had an opportunity to shoot. Well, I'll just move forward and talk about some of this work. So cotton on the left. This was cotton harvest. I just they would have been out with their harvester harvesting the cotton, but the harvester was broken, and we were just chatting with him. And so I asked him if he ever does any kind of just maintenance on the irrigation system. He's like, "Oh, I'll climb up there and take a look." And so anyway, he got up there, made a picture of him up there, and then on the right, I was down. It's like you just talk to people, and one thing kind of leads to another. I wanted to shoot some citrus, and it was Florida citrus season, and like, I don't know, November maybe. Talking to my buddies down on the peach farm, and I was telling him what I wanted to do, and he's like, "Yeah, give me a few hours. I'll call you back." And he's like, "Yeah, I got a guy who's harvesting oranges and grapefruits tomorrow down just on the Florida Georgia line." So anyway, drove down there and shot citrus harvest. So I've got these different groups under my agriculture portfolio. This is one of the guys that we photographed at the peach harvest. I had my assistant holding just a roll of white seamless out there, and yeah, I like to bring it in the shadow of the peach leaves and the little peach leaves on the top right. You know, these guys are working so fast; they don't have time to. Anytime they're not pulling peaches, they're not making money. So I try and be respectful of their time, but showing this portfolio. I got some comments specifically on this. They're like, "Oh, I like that you're doing stuff out in the orchards that yields a different look rather than just all pulling fruit off the trees." Another assistant I work with, actually the same guy who worked with me on this one, he his family back in Austria is they're all dairy farmers. So I told him, I was like, "Man, I want to go over there and shoot in Austria." And so we did. Like we flew over there and spent a week on like living, with his family and getting up every morning at 4 a.m. They work on the cows like they have 12 hours a day, man. Well, in 12-hour shifts. 4 in the morning and 4 p.m. They're out working with the cows. They've got to milk them. So anyway, this was towards the end of the day. They were bringing the cows into the barn for winter, and made this picture. But had an opportunity for one of my clients to shoot. This was up in North Dakota. We spent a day at this farm. They have corn and they have wheat and they have canola. The canola is gorgeous. It's just fields of yellow flowers that go off to infinity, and then there's this blue sky overhead. So gorgeous. But one of the shots in the deck was to capture sunrise. So we shot sunset for sunrise. But personal work leads to client work. It happens over and over again. I wanted to go through some of the client work I have. I had to do a lot of healthcare work. I do some like financial work as well. Like I mentioned for this one, this was for a small bank in North Dakota and Montana. And this was an image library and a video project. So I had a DP with me. We had a local drone team with us. Small team though, producer and then an AC. So it was really just the 5 or 6 of us, and then the client there on the ground for 5 days in North Dakota. And this was a healthcare project for a company out of the UK, but they're all over. They make, I think they make plasma and blood medications for people with blood disorders. But this is these are testimonial-like projects, real people stories. This little girl has a Pans disease, and this is her sister. And it's very editorial in nature. The company that hired me is in the UK, and they give me a brief, and I will go with meet with the family and have sort of a loose shot list, but then hold on to some time to just drive around and see what's what. There was this tall grass out near a park, and we went to the park and got out and looked around, and I was like, I don't like anything at this park, but back down the road, I really like this tall grass. So we scooted back there and did a whole series here that the agency just loved. And this was also for the same company. This was in Lincoln, Nebraska, I think. This woman was in a serious car accident and had to, without the plasma medication, she wouldn't have survived. Or maybe it was just the plasma. Anyway, something the company provided saved her life. And she got in, she was about some of the backstory. She got into weightlifting. So we spent time with her at the gym, with her trainer, spent time at her home with her mother, just walking around their property, and also at work. So it was a full day of photography. But I love these kinds of stories where they are a little more editorial in nature, and you're working with real people to tell real people stories. I feel like that's what gets me really excited. But also, like, some of the healthcare work is, the doctors are real, but the patients are actors that we bring in. This was for a healthcare group in Texas. We spent a week doing TV and also an image library that they had me come back. I think this was in the fall of 21, and then they brought me back in the spring of 22 to do another week for another campaign. But it's the same style that I shoot. Everything else, it's just it's just we have actors, and what the direction I give is really just to the doctors. It's like, look, just this is consider this a real situation. Like, here's the setup on the right. Like, this guy's getting this chemo. You're giving him an update on his progress, but also, you know this guy. He's been in here for weeks. Like, you're catching up with him. So anyway, they would just talk about whatever. I kind of just let him go and shoot around.
I love
Same
that.
thing on
The
the
way
left.
the directing comes into it so much, even for, for stills. I think people hear director and they think only motion, but it's so
Mhm.
necessary for creating like stills that you feel like emotion or you feel connected to.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of the healthcare work is, if you'll see on the bottom left. So, I give them a little specific direction too, just a little touch here and there. You're reaching out to showing empathy, and the clients always love that human connection
Right.
aspect.
You
Um,
mentioned that for this project, a part of that was creating an image library.
mhm.
A question about that. Shelley Waldman asked, how do you bid image libraries? I'm so curious.
Mm.
It seems more and more clients are asking for it.
Yeah, so the original scope was, I remember, I think it was either 50 or 100 images, may have been 100, um, from the week. And they came to me after the fact and said, we really want the whole library. Um, and so it's not only the time to go through and prepare all those images, but trying to put a value to that. And the image library still was, I didn't give them everything we shot. There was a generous edit that I made. Um, how to price it. I I think I can share that information. Let me see. I think tell you what, I know this stuff is super helpful. And if you guys follow the if you guys follow a photo editor, I mean, some of the conversations that are coming up are just so helpful. Like the how much do you make question is incredibly helpful. It just gives you some context. And right now it's the conversation about being ghosted by your clients, which, it feels super shitty. It feels super shitty. And yet it's like, I don't know what to do about it except commiserate and complain, um, with other photographers, which is kind of what I'm seeing on Instagram right now on his feed. It's like he posted today a bunch of anonymous comments, and it's just it's people talking about how they feel about it. People feel hurt. They feel it affects your psyche. It's not how we interact in normal social situations, and it seems to be a big shift. But anyway, if you don't follow a photo editor, I feel like you should. Yeah, let me see. So let's see, the image library.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that a photo editor is doing that because I think that's one of the things we're all trying to do as an industry is make sure that, we are creating a rising tide that will lift all ships and value our work so that as an industry, we are valued the way we should be. But the only way to really do that is to somewhat have a gauge of what are people doing. So I've really loved that series too of sharing, getting such a great in-depth look at the business side of how it's going for people and what they've done. And those are really great posts. So absolutely agree. If you go to a photo editor on Instagram, um, awesome content happening there.
Yeah, I want to, yeah, I want to answer that question specifically. So let me find that invoice. You guys just bear with me. I feel like we're doing totally fine on time, I think.
Oh yeah, we are.
Kind
No,
of
that's
nearing the
great.
end.
That's wonderful that you're willing to go take a look.
Yeah. So for this project, so to give you a little context, like this healthcare group is in Texas, and I don't know how many hospitals they have. They had it's a teaching hospital. In fact, their hospital isn't even built yet, but they have all these clinics. Uh, it's a big campus, enough for us to spend 5 days shooting. So like my fees, again, we were there for 5 days. My fees for the project were 40,000. And then when they came back and asked for the image library, I feel like the images that they got were, I really didn't feel like they were going to get a lot more out of it by having the library because, they already cherry picked the hero images. I don't know. Again, I don't know. So I put in that for another 12,000 for the whole library of images. So
did you say what was the original number of images that they were hoping for? Because I'm curious what their
yeah,
that step of toward library is like. Was it, oh, it was originally for 5 and then they wanted full library, or were they already getting a lot?
no, they already had a really generous
Yeah.
selection of images.
That I think is interesting, it's always interesting to me when the goal from a shoot is only a couple, and then I could see why more of a library is appealing because
Yeah, I think that's helpful to understand. Let's see. Final selects. Let me find it.
And another related question to this is, well, so 2 of them, one from Shelley, was there a hero usage fee and then a library usage fee? So it does sound like there was maybe the hero was a part of the original.
Yeah, so the original scope of work was covered by the fees that were 40K, and the here we go. I think I'll find it here. The the image library, they came back to me and said, oh, now we want the whole library. And so that was the additional 12. For some reason I'm having trouble finding that. I want to answer the question again. So let's see if I can.
And was this direct to client or was this through an agency?
This was through an agency.
Is that how is your overall spread of that? Like, do you do mostly through agency? Are you doing direct to client?
Yeah, I do some direct to client. In fact, let's see. Like this image here was with a healthcare software company that I worked with for, probably 5 or 6 years. And they would have me do a big shoot at the end of the year, and then a couple of smaller shoots throughout the year. But I would say like my mix is a lot of the agencies I work at are small to mid-size agencies. They're not the big agencies because I'm not represented. So I'd say probably maybe 60-40 for agency to direct to client.
Yeah,
as far as
Mandy.
I'm still looking for that invoice, you guys.
Well, that was already some really great insight on just, fees and then the upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, I think their image, I think the number of images was somewhere around 100 images. So again, they had a huge number of selects already.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, so when I went back the next time, it was 56K in fees. So it must have had additional work. Cost. Yeah, I'm still looking for that. Portraits. Oh, okay. So it was 40 images.
Oh, originally 40.
40, yeah, 40 images was their original ask. But again, like, I think we were shooting, maybe 4 scenarios a day. And 2 days we were doing portraits in a studio. And so, you think of 12 situations, like 40 selects, that's, what, three to four selects per
Yeah,
situation. It's like, how many more images, how many more options do you need? I mean, so from my perspective, like the value of that image library, I don't know. It didn't seem like it was all that valuable. And I'm trying to take into account the size of their organization,
sure.
and what they can afford.
Amanda Burtony says, I produced that shoot. Ask Greg what month we
Yeah.
shot it in for UT Health and she'll try finding it.
Oh, okay. Well, I just found it, Amanda. Hi, Amanda. Yeah, so Amanda produced that.
That's
Um,
awesome. And one more question kind of in this area before you move on,
mhm.
kind of applies to everything. I'm curious about like, and maybe this varies between personal work and client work, but what's an average, like, do you generally work with a lot of crew? Do you keep it small? Do you kind of go all out, depend on the project? I'm just curious how you like to work.
Yeah, I mean, that depends. Like for this project, it was Amanda producing, and I had I don't know if you guys know Morgan Cooper, but he was my, gaffer lighting tech. Um, I had Jeff Wolk digital teching. We had local hair and makeup. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything, Amanda. It was it's pretty stripped down like this was. Uh, Studio work tends to be a little more involved. Like these shoots are, like, this stuff is, it's just me, sometimes me and a photo assistant. Like, but this kind of stuff is, again, much more editorial
Yeah.
in nature. Let me see. Like for this one, I think I told you the crew was producer, a DP, an AC. We had local hair and makeup, myself, and then we had a drone team that was doing video clips for us.
Very
So,
cool.
pretty
Awesome.
small team. Let me see if anything else I've got on here. This is from that same shoot in North Dakota. We were working with a family on the left for half a day, and then on the right, I think we got up at 2 in the morning to do this. We had 2 or 3 in the morning, and then it was an hour drive, and then we had to do like, prep the gear and then hike for a half hour to get to this location in the state park. I mean, it's beautiful though. Again, small crew, like maybe 5. So yeah, and then some of the work that I'm not showing here, like for instance, Amanda produced this project for me. We were shooting for WeWork to do this office lifestyle work. I mean, I think, Amanda, we had a crew of like, gosh, I don't know, 10 to 15, and then we had maybe 10 talent throughout the day and maybe 4 extras. I think that was a 1 day, 12-hour shoot. So that was a much bigger production. I'm just kind of going through that work now and putting it up on like Ad Edge and Workbook and doing my promo stuff and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have it here. I can show some of it. Let's see. let's see. Let's see. I'll do that. Let me see if I can just pull up some of that real fast. How much time we got? We got another 18 minutes. We got plenty of time.
Yeah. And we don't have a super
Um,
hard cutoff if you get on a roll with something. I'll go ahead and ask
yeah.
for Nando Costa asked, I would love to hear Greg's point of view on generative AI and whether he has seen some of the latest tool developments starting to infiltrate the conversations with his clients or his process.
Hey, Nando. Man, Nando is super talented. Help me if I'm wrong. Like mostly, um, he would probably do better introducing himself. Just amazingly talented and well respected designer in his field of he's worked for Microsoft and well, I don't want to give your resume, Nando, but super talented guy. For me, I do see people using. I mean, I've used AI for like concepting. It's been really helpful to let me at least put some images up. It's been really helpful for for concepting, but I've seen people do things that they wish they would have done in execution, like back out a little more, get a little more room, that kind of stuff. But I've played around with it here and there. I've got I shoot some stock photography too, and before I deliver the images, they're like, "Hey, can you take this out of their hand?" And I'm like, a year ago I would have been like, "No, there's no way I
Right.
can do that." Now I'm thinking like, "Well, yeah, I probably can. I
Right.
can probably take that out of their hand and have AI generate a hand, and like it's going to be done in no time." So I don't know, Nando, if that answers your question, but
Well, and part of his question was also about like our clients, maybe that was part of it was like, well, asking about adjustments. And so yeah, no, you answered that. That was great. I know
okay,
it's funny. I feel like it for a long time it's been a thing of like you can just Photoshop it, right? And now it feels like it's, I don't know, it takes on a whole new form now that people see because there's so much online now about the generative AI stuff. Everyone's
sure,
seeing it. So
yeah, I think it's fascinating, and I think part of my I think part of my interest in shooting large format film again is that I'm sort of rekindling and building out a kit for is kind of coming from that. Um, I just I and it's all going to be personal work, but I want to I don't know I want to explore that again. This is some of the WeWork stuff. It's just office lifestyle stuff. People and then the WeWork space. Uh, they came down. This was direct to client. They came down from New York, and we set up different situations. And yeah, I don't know. I just pulled 10 selects from it. Let me see if I can go back to the. I always have the hardest time with this. Let's see. Where are we at? No, not there. APA presentation. Okay, there we are. Do you guys see that again?
yes.
Okay. All right. So let's see. I've got a few more minutes. Yeah, this was an editorial. Again, this was another Bitter Southerner project that I shot last year. This is Reverend Antoine, who the whole project was around the Okefenokee Swamp, and there's a mining project there that will impact the ecology. And so I spent a couple days down there photographing people and paddling through the swamp, and it was beautiful. I loved it. This is one of the portraits of the Reverend that I made that I really liked a lot. I put it into the what is it? The American Photography one, some kind of something. A couple of again location portraits that I've always liked. The one on the left was for UPS. The one on the right was for I don't know. It was a chef for Southern Living Magazine, I think. Yeah, up in Louisville. And then yeah, so most recently, this is a boxer project that I'm working on. Me and my friend Zach Wolf, who's legendary hip hop photographer here in Atlanta. If you don't know him, you should look him up. But he works more as a DP now, and I met this guy. He works as a phlebotomist as well, and he was taking my blood for a life insurance policy. And so we were talking. I started running a couple years ago, and he was taking my blood pressure, and he's like, "Oh man, are you a runner?" And I was like, "I don't know if I'm a runner. I did my first half marathon, which I'm super proud of." And he's like, "Oh, you're a runner." He's like, "I run too." And I was like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "Well, I'm a professional boxer." I was like, "You're kidding? You're a professional boxer, and you're taking my blood?" He's like, "Well, I've only been a pro boxer for a year, and I got injured, and so I'm about to step back in the ring. But this is, this is my aunt's business, and I've got trained as a phlebotomist, and I've got a daughter now." And I was like, "Yeah, this all sounds like a freaking amazing story. Like, how do you feel about doing like a photo, little video, kind of a little mini documentary and some photography?" And he's like, "Oh man, that'd be amazing. Like the timing couldn't be better because I'm getting back into boxing, or I'm getting back into the ring." And so anyway, I worked with uh, uh sorry, why can I not remember her name? Erin. Erin Doster, excuse me. Erin Doster is a fantastic stylist in town. So I worked with her to do styling. And yeah, I can show you some of the AI stuff, which is super, super funny. But I plugged in some prompts into AI and came up with some concepts. So again, this is some of the personal work with Marco that we shot. Some of the stuff that we did that I came up with AI was like totally spot on. And then some of it was like just absolutely hilarious. In fact, this one here would be a good place to start. Everybody can just bear with me while I pull up some of the AI stuff. For instance, I think I can just pull this over onto the screen. Okay. It's going to take a second for me to pull it up. Hang on. I don't know if I'll be able to find the other image. I'll have to dig through.
So these images this was all personal work shot with him.
That's true. Yeah, that's accurate. This was again, this was me just talking with Marco while he was literally putting my blood into little vials to send off for analysis. I was talking with him about, what, like this is, let me see, I got it here.
It's beautiful work. Are there times where are you ever like, you shoot a personal project and you uncover these stories that are like interesting, and are you ever then like saying, well, like thinking about submitting them? Do you submit them sometimes after the fact
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to put this so you guys can see the AI that I generated and then the final image.
So that was
You can see
concept.
that, right?
You generated an AI.
Yeah, this was the concept. I was really specific with my prompts. I was like profile, black boxer, red gloves, red background, red studio lighting, and it came up with this. And this way I could send it to Aaron, my stylist, and be like, "This is what I'm going for." And so then, we were going to shoot it at the gym. We got there, and the guy who was running the gym had totally closed up the gym. So I set it up out in a parking lot. I set up a red sweep, and I set up my lights with red gels on it, and we backed out, and the wind was like flapping the seamless, but I got what I wanted.
That's awesome.
So I want to see if I can find some of the more entertaining AI that because like for this image, like what AI generated, like I could not get it to generate what I wanted at all. It looked hilarious. I had like I had like I think my prompts were like parking lot, in front of the runway, airplane in the sky, boxer, white gloves. Anyway, it had like, it was like a minotaur looking, a guy was like half human and half car, and then there was like a bunch of airplanes, crazy looking airplanes parked behind him. Didn't quite match my idea, but
Oh my goodness. Sounds like there could be a very funny series of like AI prompts trying to concept
yeah.
AI. What are you
So,
using for it? Which AI tool are you using for when you're doing this concepting work?
oh, I have a subscription to what's Midjourney.
Okay.
That's the only one I've really tried. I didn't really venture out into trying different ones. I just started working with that one. I mean, a bunch of other photographers were, I don't know, it's people have kind of fallen off. They were doing a lot of like AI challenges, and the work is so interesting looking. I feel like it kind of, there was this look that came out in probably the mid to late 2000s that was like really composited, highly retouched, really polished looking work. And I feel like it kind of has that kind of, fantasy kind of look to it, just this unreal, hyper realistic kind of look to it that is kind of like a look all to its own. And I mean, I hear stories of you know my clients have been like, yeah, we're doing a campaign and we're generating all the images in AI. So I mean, yes, it's happening. It's there. It's here. It's everywhere. And I think it'll be a helpful tool. And I hope that uh, I hope it won't be the end of photography. I don't think it will be, but I think the impact it's going to have. I think to ignore it and put your head in the sand is going to just not help you in any way. I do think you need to keep it on your radar and embrace it in some capacity. You don't have to. There's no absolutes here, but um, yeah, I think it's certainly interesting. Um, yeah, I mean, we've got like 5 more minutes. Is there anything that anybody wants to talk about or?
I do have some additional questions. I wasn't sure if you had more images you wanted to get through because I didn't want to keep interrupting.
Yeah, no. I'll see if I can be brief. But yeah, I mean, to answer the question, like I want to release all this imagery once we have the video finished. Like we've done a day of shooting. We did like a 2.5 hour interview that was pretty extensive, and I want to do 2 more days of shooting. I've got it edited down to like 30 minutes now, which is way too long. So I need to keep cutting to get it down to a much shorter. I feel like maybe 6 to 8 minutes would be good. But I don't know. Who knows? I don't know where. Maybe 12 minutes. I really don't know. We'll see what I can trim it down to. But at that time, I'll release the images and the video together. So.
Very cool. And where all do you release? Where all do you like to show up
Oh,
online? You're
yeah. I
releasing.
mean, I'll promote it on my own channels and through AdEdge and Workbook. And again, I've had representation a couple times in my career, and I don't currently have representation, which it just means that you don't play with the national agencies for national campaigns. That's been my experience. If you have a different experience, then please tell us about it. But that's been my experience. Small to mid-sized agencies are my on my email lists, and promote it through email and social media, and again through AdEdge and Workbook.
Okay. And actually on that discussion, well, so it's so funny. I was about to ask this and Ren Adkins, hi Ren, just asked the same question. So her question is, do you find the subscription services like Workbook, Wonderful Machine, AdEdge, etc., to be helpful? What's in your experience with that?
Yeah, definitely. It's great. Like that question that you asked about, like, please let us know how you found out about this presentation today.
Right?
Like that stuff is so important. As soon as you get on your creative call, like, how did you guys find me? Like that is so important to ask. It's the only time you really get the feedback, right? Whether you win or lose the job, it's so important to know. Like WeWork found me on Wonderful Machine. I was really surprised. I usually get some small projects throughout the year from Wonderful Machine, but this was a much bigger shoot. Um, I think like my personal experience, like like the healthcare, like the UT Health shoot that I did, that me and Amanda did, it was, it was 2 weeks in Texas, spread out by like 5 or 6 months. But while I was on that job, workbook was, let's see, while we were on the second week of that job, which was in the spring, I think, I was promoting with workbook my the work I'd done in the fall, and my client showed it to me. She's like, "Oh, one of our clients just reached out to us and said we want something like this." And I was like, "Oh, that's crazy! Like they found that on workbook, didn't they?" They're like, "Yeah," and I was able to say, "We actually are the agency that produced that work," which, again, like I think it was a year later, me and Amanda and my crew, we were up in North Dakota shooting for them. I think no, that's not true. I was with my photo assistant shooting in Ohio this year for that project. But yeah, so people see it, I know I talk to other photographers and they have different experiences.
Right.
Sometimes, they go a year or two and nothing happens. And then I think it just, so much of it is timing, so much of it is timing. So much of life is timing, if you, you probably understand that. The same thing applies to your work. But I think if you don't put it out there, you don't have the opportunity. This guy Hank, who ran Portfolio Center, told me, I was like, man, I feel real lucky about all the experiences I've had here at Portfolio Center. And he's like, fuck that, you haven't been lucky. He's like, you worked hard, you positioned yourself so that when there was an opportunity, you were able to take advantage of it. Wow, that is probably a much more accurate way to frame that. Like, there's this whole idea of you make your own luck. Maybe luck's not the good word at all. Maybe it's just like opportunities. You gotta be positioned to take advantage of them. And I'm
Absolutely.
not, I feel
Just
like
hear
I've had a pretty good career
share.
for 20 years, and it's been able to weather the ups and downs. And I'd love to have another 10 years. That's what I'm hoping for.
Right. Well, just from
Yeah.
hearing you share about all, the work you've gone through, I mean, you're staying active in a lot of different ways. I mean, yes, you're taking on the client work that comes up and making sure that you're showing up in places you can be found, but you're getting out there. I mean, I really, I don't know, it's really hit me on like how much this personal work you're creating and just how much that is relationship building and just kind of getting out there. And I think it can be hard when we're not, if there are times where there's not work to feel anxiety from that. And so if you can find a way to just keep creating and keep engaging with the work and what's beautiful about the work, which is the relationships and the connections and just the life experience of it, I think that's really fantastic. And you've certainly shared ways in which the personal projects become client work. Shelley commented and said, that tell people what you want to shoot and the power of 6 degrees of separation takes over. Like, it just sounds like that's been a part of your experience. So it's really cool.
That's the thing. It's like so much of it has also been who you know, but it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's who you know. Yes, it's putting the work out there. Yes, it's timing. It's all these things. They have to kind of work in a this symphony of success. I don't know if that's a term, but in order to, it's not just one thing, but yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ren asked another question. She said, do you have a favorite way to market yourself or one way that has seemed to work best for you? So kind of in line of the same conversation.
I'm so not consistent with my marketing. I really should be. I mean, it's so much work too. It's so hard. Like I spent all day yesterday going through work from the past year to get up on Ad Edge and Wonderful Machine. It was like I was telling my wife, I was like, oh, I freaking hated it. Just sitting in front of the computer, looking at pictures and using this form online and uploading images, and 20% of the time it fails and I've got to do it again. And it's a freaking chore, and yet you got to do it. You got to find time for it. What's worked for me, what's been consistently most successful for me is maintaining relationships for 20 years. And you know, being not ghosting people and being, you know, just maintaining open channels, reaching out, and you haven't heard from someone in a while, give them a call or send them an email, or um, you know, follow up, and you know, be personable. You know, I think these are things that most people try and do anyway, but I I feel like that has been super successful for me, and you know, getting recommended by people. I mean, you know, 20 years, I've got the benefit. That's a huge benefit for my career. Is 20 years of, you know, working with people who have, you know, gone on to other places and worked with other people, and um, you know, it's led to, you know, word of mouth advertising too. Um, so, and you know, that's not to say that I'm always busy. Like, I mean, this summer has been just dreadfully slow, but again, it's given me opportunity to do projects like this. I've got like I've got so many personal projects. If things get busy in the fall, I'm going to be really busy trying to manage my time. But you know, I've got like 3 videos that I'm going to be directing for with another DP friend of mine. I'm talking to another DP friend of mine about a project on like a guy who's going out for like the world champion kayakers, some contests, you know, and then this boxer, and I revisited another project I did and totally recut it. So I'm working on that. I'm working with my friend to get the audio, sound design, and the music scored, and you know, it's a lot of video projects right now, which I've kind of always passively taken and worked on, and I feel like should all of these projects be completed before the fall, I'll have, I don't know, have 7 or 8 new little video projects that are in line with what I like to shoot. These kind of, you know, mini documentary sort of reportage, sort of, um, you know, editorial feeling, testimonial sort of first person stories, you know, with a photography component as well. Like that's the kind of work that I love doing from a stills perspective, and you know, from a video perspective. And I want to do more of that. So I'm, you know, trying to actively make that happen. I know the question was about marketing.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I mean,
you answered it and more. That's perfect.
yeah, I think workbook's been helpful. You know, I tried that edge a long time ago, and I got one big job out of it that paid for it, and then I had another year with nothing, so I let it go, and trying it out again this year. Uh, jury's out. I don't know. I mean, AdEdge is owned by Workbook, but it's a totally different platform. Um, eh, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's important to, you know, trial and error. I think is important. See what works for you. I know it can be expensive, um,
Yeah.
but you know, trial and error. And yeah, things like Wonderful Machine are not that expensive, and I feel like I always get enough work throughout the year that pays for it and more. And I like their a la carte services too. Like I've leaned on them for like list building and stuff like that. Uh,
Okay. Well, and so
um,
uh, on the vein of marketing, you mentioned in the beginning about, you know, transitioning from students starting to show your book. Can you talk
yeah.
a little bit about that? Like, do you do portfolio reviews? Have you in the
Mm.
past? Is that something that's been in the mix before for you, or is still?
Yeah, it has. I feel like man, it's so multi pronged right now. You know, I don't have any current portfolio books. I know AdEdge does, and you know, so does like Boulevard Artists, and I think Workbook does too. I think, but I think Workbook might be online. I can't remember, but yes, goals are for me to have a printed book and to do like the AdEdge, you know, face to face, and to do, you know, have a book to meet with people locally, and to have with me when I travel, and take a day when I'm traveling to be like, hey, I'm in town. I'd love to meet up with you and show my book to you, introduce myself, you know, follow the work you guys do, and I'd really like to be someone you would consider working with. Here's why. Yeah, I think it's great. I think that some of the platforms like I know Boulevard does, and Workbook and AdEdge. They have these, you can sign up for these Zoom meetings with creatives, and I don't exactly know how they work. I suspect they work that they get some kind of compensation for it. And so I'm not saying they do it just for the money, but you know, why would they not? They should get compensated for it. And I don't know how seriously they take it. I try and ask questions that are helpful for me.
Oh yeah.
And if they want, I've met with people and tried to follow up with them, and just gotten ghosted. So I don't know how seriously they take it. But again, like I'm planning meetings with people that are at big agencies, and having a rep with a big agency, with a national agency, is such it's a barrier to entry from my experience. Like, you have to be repped. When I was repped, I was working with Ogilvy and BBDO, and the big agencies in Chicago and New York and Atlanta, and as soon as I didn't have representation, that stuff evaporated.
That's really interesting to hear.
So yeah, it just went away because, and those are some of the questions I asked in some of those Zoom meetings, and like the answers I got made total sense to me. It's like, look, if one, credibility, and just ease. Like, my life is complicated enough and busy enough. I can go to a rep, and I can go to 3 reps, and they can send me a couple of estimates from a couple of different photographers, and I'll get all my bids. I can reach out to this person any hour of the day, and they will reply back to me. They're never on a shoot and unavailable. They're never unavailable. And if I have a problem with you as a photographer, I'd much rather go to your rep and say, hey, I'm having a problem with this guy or this girl or whatever, and I need you to fix it. And then the rep will intervene. The rep will solve the rep is the full-time problem solver. And that's just, again, my experience tells me that that's just the expectation.
So,
and so
oh, sorry.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm happy working with the smaller agencies. I enjoyed working with the bigger projects too. It's just, pick your flavor.
Sure. Well, so in that vein, Shelley Waldman asks, curious why you left having a rep, and why not try, have you tried out temp repping?
Have I tried out? What was the question?
Like, have you worked with a temp rep, like a
Oh, a
rep?
temp rep. I have not worked with a temp rep. My first rep that I worked with was, I describe her as like the old guard. Like, she worked with Jim Erickson, and like a lot of these film photographers, because I was straight out of school. I mean, when I was out 20 years ago, I was shooting film. And she was like, she got really overwhelmed with the speed with which people wanted to see things. And I don't think she liked the always on call kind of, that's what's expected now. It's what was expected 15 years ago. And she didn't like it. Anyway, I just told her, things aren't working out, and I'm just going to go it alone for a while. And I did. And then a good friend of mine she was a broadcast producer. She started a rep business and was tremendously successful, and had a roster with, great photographers. She had art directors, she had writers, she had post-production, she had production companies, and man, it was great. And she was so charismatic and so enthusiastic, and people adored her. I did too, still do. And, she called me, and she was so upset. She's like, I'm going to close my business down. She's like, I want to have another baby. And I'm thinking about all of the times that I missed, like at a kindergarten, whatever, and I'm out in the hallway on a call with a client. Like, I want to be present. Like, I want to be there for my family. And so anyway, it makes total sense. So she closed her business down, and I did the find a rep service with Wonderful Machine, and went through that. And I talked with a handful of people. Didn't go anywhere. And I don't, I'm open to it. I think that I'll probably early next year kind of do another, testing the waters, trying to figure out if there's somebody I could work with out there. I want to get all these video projects done, and just I think I'll be positioned a little bit differently. So I don't know. Hopefully that answers your
Yeah.
question, like as far as what my experience has been like.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome. Thank you.
yeah, I really loved working with the rep. I thought it was fantastic. At
Yeah,
least my last experience was.
awesome. Well, I have a couple more questions for you. The one of them, so you talked about funding one of your, or at least one of your personal projects through Kickstarter. And that's definitely something, I hear people talk about the, one of the difficult things about personal work is the cost, especially if you really do need at least a little bit of crew help with you. Then you want to pay people if there's not
Yeah.
like a direct get out of it for them, especially assistants and stuff. And so do you have any advice on, the financial side of personal projects? Like, is that something that you felt, did you like the Kickstarter thing? Is that something you'd recommend? But
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
actually never heard of anybody doing that before. So I think that's really interesting. You did it that way.
yeah, no, again, it was in the infancy of crowdsourcing, and I don't know if it would be a valid or a successful channel now. Maybe it would be. Yeah, as far as like, I just try and I think that the style that I shoot kind of lends itself to having a small crew. And so I think that, like for instance, this boxer project with Zach and Aaron did a day of styling for us. Like I asked Aaron if I just came out front. I was like, look, I'm doing this personal project. Would you be interested and just doing it for work, for prints? And she's like, oh, I'd love to. I mean, I work with Aaron, so she's like, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. And so she is getting some work out of it, hopefully that she's super proud of. And then Zach, my friend, he's the DP on it. He's doing it just because he wants to work on the project too. Oftentimes it's like these self-assigned projects, or they can just be a lot more. You have a lot more creative freedom, and like the collaborative spirit feels good. It's enjoyable to be part of it. Now his AC, I mean, we pay if we had like a photo assistant or his AC, like definitely getting paid. Like there's nothing that they would get out of it. They're like, oh, I was a photo assistant on that, like, or I was the
Right.
AC on that one. That doesn't really go very far. It's like they need, and they're much more affordable. And I mean, honestly, if Aaron had been like, I want to be a part of it, but I need a little compensation. I'm like, oh, we got, of course.
Right.
I think you need to be open to that. As far as like finding funding, you've never gone, well, I don't know, it's not totally true. I did a story on this personal trainer. It was a video project, and AARP, like I reached out to them because they had reached out to me to pitch ideas, and they were like, yeah, we want to do it. I sent them 3 ideas, and they were like, yeah, I like this one. So I haven't done a lot of pitching of ideas, but that's a that's a I mean, that's a way to get someone behind it to help. I mean, I didn't really make much money off it, but I was able to pay my DP and the AC, and um, it was helpful. And my gaff, I had Morgan Cooper on to help me with lighting on it, and he brought his truck and all his gear, and so he got paid. Yeah, so I think pitching ideas to either editorial or the social marketing department of like client direct. um I don't know, I'm running out of words, but trying to that those kind of channels, you can find some you know some money to at least break even, at least I would think.
Okay. Thank you. And then
Yeah.
one last question. I don't before we close out, what advice do you have for photographers that I don't know, maybe are newer to like getting started on shooting personal projects and maybe feel nervous about approaching people about it or engaging with people? Just
Yeah.
I guess kind of your advice based on your experience of getting started with, now you've done so much of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you give people.
Well, when I do personal projects, I will typically put together like a multi-page like document, like you would like a creating a treatment for a project, for a client project, so that like one, I want to be able to communicate to the people, especially if it's involving a lot of people, and like like for that agriculture project, I can show you guys that. I'm going to do a quick stop share and find it. Um, it helps me to organize my thoughts and also helps me to let's see, helps me to communicate to whoever I'm shooting what what the hell I'm trying to accomplish and what to expect. Here, let me show you. I'll show you this document again. It helped me to be organized first and foremost, but secondly, it helped me to communicate to people that had no idea who I was and what I wanted to do. And these are freaking farmers. Like, what the hell do they know about what I want to do? So, again, about me, talking about the kind of work and showing some examples, some inspiration. This is the kind of stuff I wanted to shoot. These are the different, um, I don't know, the different areas that I wanted to cover. Just again, visually, quickly being able to communicate what I wanted to do.
I love
And
that.
to
I
just
think,
ground me, like while I was going through the project, like the kind of stuff I wanted to capture. That was really it, you know?
yeah. No, that's so, I think that that's really brilliant because it can't, but for people who are not photographers or visual artists, it can be really difficult to explain verbally or in writing
Yeah,
the concept of what you're thinking and the difference between, I mean, I've seen that happen so much where you try to talk about what the idea is with someone who is not a visual creative and they're like, okay, I think, and you show, and they're like, oh, okay. Like they immediately, it clicks and they're excited. So you can get that enthusiasm and buy-in. And it's certainly a very professional way to approach the project as well. So I think that
yeah,
that's brilliant. And I love that you actually put together a full brief for personal work like that. It's fantastic.
yeah.
And
I mean, again, like I sent that to Buster down in South Georgia, and he's immediately knows what I wanted to do. Um, so yeah, when I was, I don't know if you guys know, you probably most of you do, Chris Pinnell. He's the guy I went over to Austria with because that's where his family has. I gave it to him, and he sent it over there to them just to say like, this is what we want to do when we get over there. And so when we got over there, it's they understood what we wanted to do. It wasn't a surprise to them that we wanted to always have our camera with us, like try and set up some shots and create some situations and offer some direction, and they could see where we wanted to go with it. But again, also just the organization for me, like as far as like focusing my the scope of work, like what do I want to get out of this, help to answer those kind of questions.
that's
um,
fantastic.
yeah,
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gregory. This has
yeah,
been
this has been super
incredible.
fun.
I love all your stories about the
Oh,
images. Your
thanks.
work is stunning. Um, thank you everyone who has been here asking questions and following along. Yeah, do you
Yeah,
have
thanks to everybody who joined too. It's really great to have
so
everybody here.
what's the best way people, I know you're on Instagram, what's the best way for people to follow along with your work?
Oh yeah, follow me on Instagram. I guess that's where I post. I should be posting more frequently, but yeah, that's where I post. And
And your website?
yeah, Gregory Miller Pictures is my website. And then yeah, if anyone has any other questions, I'm available. Reach out to me. We'll get coffee and chit chat. Happy
Awesome.
to talk.
Thank you
Um,
so much. Well,
yeah, and I think one more thing I wanted to say is just to shoot all the time and ask questions, like, and be specific, and don't be afraid to ask. Like, I love follow a photo editor. I love what he's doing as far as trying to break down those barriers of like, how much do you make for that job? Like, what does your estimate look like? Like, how do you how do you find your crew? How do you reach out? Like, how do you market yourself? Like, how did you get this job? Like, ask those kinds of questions if you're a young shooter and you're trying to build your business. Because I mean, my perspective has always been like, if someone's getting the job and I'm not getting it, it's not their fault. They're doing it better. They deserve it. It's like nobody's taking anything from me.
Mm,
Like they're all this information should be available and transparent. And like we're all just trying to do great work and make a living. Um, like I really strongly feel that way. So like
I love that.
anyway, that's my perspective. So
Perfect. Thank you so much.
all
Well,
right. Thanks.
this was a recorded talk, so we are going to post this to the American Photographic Artists National YouTube. So that'll be available later for anybody who came in late or needed to leave early. Make sure that you check out apanational.org to follow along with all the things we're doing. And our chapter is Atlanta. We are APA Atlanta on Instagram. But Gregory, thank you so much. This has been an
Yeah.
amazing chat, and just look forward to continue seeing the great work you create and the stories that
Thank
you
you.
share. It's really fantastic.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.